Welcome to Visionaries Global Media, your number one source for podcasting entertainment. Visionaries Global Media, envisioning excellence on a global scale.
This is Banned from Ringside.
Tonight on the Banned from Ringside podcast, The Rock sings, Cody rebuts, Jay and Jimmy beef on Raw, Okada wins gold in AEW, the tag team tournament takes shape, and we're moving closer and closer to AEW Dynasty, and oh, by the way, wrestling at the Grandel this weekend. That and a whole bunch more this week on the Banned from Ringside podcast. It's time to feel alive. What up, Marks? Welcome to a special episode of the Banned from Ringside podcast. I am your special guest host, Jason Cornelius Bell, JCB, a.k.a. the one-man stand. And if you're having girl problems, I feel bad for your son. I got 99 problems, but a beefer ain't one. Hit me! And on that lively note, I'll ask our congregation to bow their heads as I read from the latest edition of the Banned from Ringside podcast, volume 352, chapter 3, verse 14, and the good smart saying, hashtag boo the heels. It's all good, baby. Listen, share, subscribe, repeat. The holy trinity of BFR. Obviously, you can tell I am solo dolo this week. No Bill, no Zach, no Vice. It's your boy JCB running the whole damn show like I was supposed to do. So for that person that voted me as their least favorite personality on BFR, this is probably the episode you want to skip because it's just me. I'm the only person talking. I'm going to be talking for as long as I want. I can say whatever the hell I want. Why? Because there's nobody to stop me from saying so. So on that lovely note, I'll let the boys tell you what they did while they were gone last week and saddling me with the burden of taking the show on by myself, but that's okay. I'm doing it for you, the beefers out there that love the show, that come back for this each and every week, which one, first and foremost, thank you very much. Secondly, if you haven't gone to our Facebook group, Friends of BFR, sign up for it. You know, just invite yourself. We'll let you in. Shouldn't be an issue. From that point, we'll be talking about, obviously, some WWE, some AEW, sprinkling some New Japan and some NXT as well. But before we get this thing started, this weekend is a big weekend for local wrestling. If you don't know, now you know. Wrestling at the Grandel this weekend starts, I believe, at 4 o'clock. The doors open at 3. Tickets are still available at Metro Tix. So in that scenario, don't meet me there, beat me there, baby. I will be in the house with some friends of mine. We'll be sitting in a booth, I guess. So we'll be on the balcony level overlooking everybody. So yeah, if you see me, I'll be wearing BFR gear. So I'll be easily the one to spot out the easiest. Come up, holla at your boy. You know, let's take a picture. You know, let's talk a little wrestling, all that other good stuff. But most importantly, we're supporting Joey and this latest venture of his. Believe this will be, I think it's the 3rd or 4th episode of Wrestling at the Grandel. If I'm counting it right, and I'm counting the Alton episode as well. Always a good time. I would like to see everybody come out and support my boy because we're going to have a good time, like I said, and we're going to see some good independent wrestling highlighted by, at least for me, Mike Speedball Bailey. It's somebody that I've really been wanting to see live and in person, and this is a golden chance to do it. So on that note, thank you, Tinder Mahal. And without further ado, let's get that 3 count. All right, so the 1 count, we're going to do a little WWE this evening. Like I said, it started off on SmackDown this week with The Rock having his latest concert. Didn't realize that I shouldn't say didn't realize, but I believe this was in Memphis, Tennessee this week or last week, and his ties to Memphis and how the crowd, even though he was healing it up, was still on the Rock side, so to speak, you know, cheering on the Rock, chanting his name, all that other good stuff. Not the best Rock concert that I've seen. I've seen other ones that was way funnier, but I think the point got across at the end where Rock basically said with no uncertain terms he was going to take his own weight belt off, whip Cody with it, and the blood-soaked belt of The Rock's was going to be handed over to Cody Rhodes' mom that would probably be sitting at ringside. That was like, dude, that's a nice little burn. But yet, Cody returns fire on Raw, talking about The Rock's mom and saying that he knows The Rock's mom too, which got a nice little ooh and ah. Nothing too crazy, but both sides getting their shots across leading up to night one of WrestleMania. Like I said last week, for me, night one of WrestleMania, I'm assuming the tag team match will be the main event. That just needs to be absolute chaos. I don't care what they do or how they get to it. That needs to be absolute chaos, one. And then two, with the bloodline winning, knock on wood, the main event of night two, Roman Reigns versus Cody Rhodes, needs to be even more chaos. And I'm talking about run-ins. I'm talking about, ref bumps, the whole 9 yards. From that point, whoever wins. I would assume Cody would win that match, but time will tell. Other things on SmackDown we need to talk about, LDF versus LWO. The winner would advance to next week's qualifying match for the WrestleMania ladder match, which was a little weird because other like Raw and on NXT, the winners of those matches went immediately to the title match on Stand and Deliver and WrestleMania. In this scenario, for whatever reason, Raw has qualifying matches. SmackDown has qualifying matches, and then next week we'll have a match itself to determine who joins the other teams at WrestleMania. So in that scenario, Legado del Fantasma beats LWO, they advance, and New Catch Republic beats Pretty Deadly, they advance. I believe the OC is the other team that is advanced as well. So those three teams should be wrestling next tomorrow night, actually, to advance to WrestleMania's ladder match. Other topics on SmackDown I want to touch on real quick. Santos beats Dragon Lee, but the return of Rey Mysterio definitely is in play again, where Rey has now come back from injury, and that feels like a Rey Santos Escobar feud, at least one-on-one for maybe WrestleMania. I said I was thinking 8-on-8, LWO versus Legado del Fantasma for WrestleMania. Somehow, some way, I got the sneaky suspicion this angle, I guess, better choice of words, will end up on WrestleMania, whether it's a singles or an 8-man tag. Randy Orton beats Grayson Waller, but post-match, Logan Paul attacks Randy Orton. KO comes out to make the save. Orton almost RKO's KO, say that 5 times fast. Nick Aldis comes out and makes the match that we kind of speculated the couple weeks leading up to this. Triple threat for the U.S. title, the Bill Vegas special. You have Randy Orton versus Kevin Owens versus Logan Paul. I think that's going to be a tremendous match. The more and more that we're getting matches on this card for WrestleMania, whether it's night 1 or night 2, I'm sitting here thinking this is a loaded card, as Bill Vegas would like to say. I don't see too many down points on either show, whether it's Saturday or Sunday. Obviously, there's still some more matches that are probably going to come up to fill in the rest of the card itself for either night. But so far, I don't see too many times where there'll be a bathroom break and or shower break, depending on what time I watch Saturday night 1's show for myself. But in that scenario, like I said, I think WrestleMania is shaping up very nicely. Both shows should be well received, very entertaining, and I'm looking forward. I don't think there's a really a bad show just yet. I'd like to see both cards and kind of compare them when they actually come out. But for me, I don't think there's going to be too many down matches on either night. LA Knight, still looking for AJ Styles, ends up finding him. Unfortunately, AJ Styles jumping LA Knight from behind with the chair that apparently, I'm assuming, is the same chair that AJ beat LA Knight with in Perth, Australia. So that looks like that is going to be a WrestleMania match. I'm pretty sure they made it official. If not, I'm sure it will be official tomorrow night. LA Knight versus AJ Styles. I'm looking forward to that immensely. Damage Control Bailey had a decent little segment, and then Bailey wins by DQ over Dakota Kai as Damage Control beats down Bailey. You only had Naomi come out to help make the save on Bailey. No Bianca, no Jade. So interested to see what they're going to do in the next couple weeks, because we're now at a point where if this match is going to be made with Damage Control, Naomi, Bianca, and Jade, or without Jade, it's going to have to happen in the next couple weeks. So I'm looking forward to see how they play that out. Let's jump over to the Raw side, where you had Jimmy and Jay open up Raw, basically cementing their WrestleMania match. I knew that we had talked about, and I'm still just really surprised because A, how time flies, and B, how they extended the Jay and Jimmy feud to get to this point where now we're here at WrestleMania and it's clear that we're going to have this match. This is going to be one of those mid-card matches on either night, but I'm really looking forward to this match. They have reeled me in with Jay's emotion about how he's just trying to get away from the bloodline and do his own thing, and Big Brother Jimmy is just not allowing that to happen. Big Brother's always right. If you have a big brother, I'm sure you've heard this discussion on multiple occasions. I have several big brothers, so I know I've heard this one. So in that scenario, you have something that people can relate to. For myself, I'm not a big Jimmy Uso guy. Once they kind of broke off, they being the Usos broke away from the bloodline, Jimmy and Jay obviously separated, but Jay felt like he was elevated, felt like he was taken more seriously. Jimmy was much more of a comedic character at this point, and it never really resonated with me. There was times where I thought he was funny. I'm not going to sit up here and say that he wasn't funny, but it never really made me want to see more of him. Once they started to cross paths where Jimmy and Jay were going to seemingly meet at WrestleMania, and Jimmy, fucks over Jey Uso time after time after time again, now they got me where I wanted to see Jay get hands on Jimmy as soon as humanly possible. So in that scenario, as much as I didn't like Jimmy Uso, Triple H has now got me invested, at least to the point where I want to see this match. I want to see Jay go over. I want to see him just wear out Jimmy as much as humanly possible. So tip to the hat, Triple H, you done your job. Another angle I wanted to talk about is Sami Zayn and Gunther. On Monday night, Sami Zayn and Gunther had their contract signing for the Intercontinental title match at WrestleMania. Beforehand, Chad Gable cornered Sami Zayn in the back and basically told him that he had no chance of winning if he kept his current mentality going up to this match. I love how, even though Chad Gable is not even involved in this match, Chad Gable still has some sort of impact, influence on this match, whatever you want to call it, where now he's kind of in Sami Zayn's head. Now, Sami, you can tell, even though Sami Zayn was a little miffed, I guess, for lack of a better term, by what Chad Gable said, it was in the back of his mind going out to the contract sign versus Gunther, all the way up until Gunther basically felt like Gunther disrespected Sami, and Sami felt it as such, and now Sami turned it on and was like, look at my eyes, tell me if you see anything that makes you think I'm scared, kind of deal. And that's when I was like, okay, this is going to be one of those matches that's going to be on and popping. I cannot wait. Like I said, WrestleMania, it just feels like every match they put up, it's just like, oh shit, we're just adding another log to the fire. It's, for me, like I said, I think this is just time for Gunther to drop the IC title. Sami feels like it's a good person and more so of a credible person that you can see taking the title off of Gunther. Gunther is ready for the main event scene at this point. He has had a tremendous Intercontinental title run. He's made that Joker feel relevant, and his matches have been borderline good to great. it's just time to move him up. He feels like the top heel. If it wasn't for Drew McIntyre doing the Lord's work versus Seth Rollins and or CM Punk, we'll talk about that in a second, I think we'd be talking about Gunther a whole lot more. For me personally, it's 1 and 1A, Drew and Gunther as the top heel characters, personas on Monday Night Raw. The only reason I'm giving Drew just a little bit of a bump is just the fact that his character just feels like the one that is a little more heelish. It's the one that you want to see really get the comeuppance to, especially now with this whole CM Punk just running CM Punk down at every given turn. The what chance once again on Monday night quickly snuffed out by Drew McIntyre. He should give a masterclass on that shit now, because this is back-to-back weeks where he's just basically quieted the crowd once they tried to get the CM Punk chant started. I'll be real intrigued on Monday night to see if he can do that, or he's not going to be able to do it. Let's just keep it real. It's going to be on it's going to be in Chicago on Monday night. There's no way on God's green earth he's going to shut down Chicago. But I'll be interested to see, A, if he's there, and B, if so, how can he kind of subdue, I guess, this Chicago crowd that will be hot and ready to go to see their hometown hero CM Punk, who apparently will be in Chicago and will be at WrestleMania. Another twist to the WrestleMania match with Seth versus Drew. We had speculated on a Damian Priest cash in. At least that's my theory. I shouldn't say we, I should say me. I've speculated on a Damian Priest cash in, but now if CM Punk is going to be at WrestleMania, then that's another option of how to finish this match if you want to have Seth go over. Punk obviously hates Drew, and Drew has been dragging CM Punk's name through the mud every chance he gets. Hell, there's a t-shirt out that should be in my hands this weekend that I'll be wearing at some point, where you see Drew, giving the peace sign over CM Punk's WrestleMania gravesite. And I think that is just tremendous heel work. Drew McIntyre has just been an amazing character since he's flipped heel. His logic may be a little flawed, but you can at least be like, that motherfucker's got a point. So in that scenario, I think Drew has just been just tremendous. Gunther has been right behind him. For me, Gunther has just been much more of an overbearing heel. He's so good. He knows it. You know it. And now we've been asking the question for 600 plus days, who's going to beat Gunther? Drew is much more of a heel where he has a good point, but it's not always the correct point, if that makes sense. So in his mind, he's right. But from our perspective, there's some flawed logic to this, especially now with him getting victories with help from other sources, whether it's bloodline or otherwise, versus a year ago where he was adamantly pissed off every time he got fucked over by the bloodline. Interesting stuff. I'll be really looking forward to that Seth versus Drew match. They had another segment on Monday Night Raw. I'm not sure where this is going with that. That's their interaction, Seth and Drew, the last couple weeks, where Seth feels, like I said, he keeps poking the hornet's nest, and when you poke the hornet's nest, the next thing you know, you're probably gonna get stung. I keep waiting for Drew to snap, and he's not. So I guess that's the point, that Drew won't be manipulated by Seth. At this point, I mean, if you're Drew, why would you want Seth at 100%? You're a heel. You're going to do what you need to do. So if for me, as far as I was concerned, I'm still waiting for Drew to just be like, you know what, fuck this shit. I'm going to fuck this dude up and keep it moving. Let's jump over to back to the tag team ladder match, because we actually had teams that advanced to WrestleMania by winning some matches, DIY advances, beating the Creeds. I was a little surprised there, but Johnny Gargano and Ciampa at WrestleMania, that's not a bad thing to have there, in my opinion. Same for New Day versus Alpha Academy. I thought Alpha Academy might have had a chance, especially with Chad Gable, if Chad Gable was in the match. But once I saw Akira Tozawa, that was game, set, match. New Day advances to WrestleMania. Not a huge surprise. Kofi in a ladder match. I think that's peanut butter and jelly, if you know what I'm saying. And then the Awesome Truth defeats Indus Sher to advance as well. I don't even know why they even drug Indus Sher out there. I think you could have got 2 more other guys and kept that thing moving along. Neither here nor there. Miz and Truth advance. Ricochet beats Dominic Mysterio. So that's, if I'm not mistaken, that's back-to-back wins for Ricochet over JD and Dominic. I can see JD beating JD losing to Ricochet. JD McDonough, unfortunately, great talent, but he's the whipping boy for Judgment Day. Dom was a little bit more of a like ruh-roh raggy, but not even ruh-roh raggy, but just more of a surprise. I never thought that Dominic would lose, especially in a scenario where Judgment Day was in the building, and they clearly were there. You know, even though it was just JD McDonough at ringside, the rest of Judgment Day was in the building. It just came off as a surprise. I'm not sure what we're doing with Ricochet. You know, I'm kind of curious because I am a Ricochet fan. I would be lying if I said otherwise. A part of me just thinks that he's just spinning his wheels in the mud once he re-signed, because I think we've seen his ceiling, his floor. He's not going to get any lower unless they just have him in some sort of weird angle where he just continuously loses. I think we've seen all we can see from Ricochet. I'm not going to say, go to AEW or anything like that, but I'm curious to see what the deal is with Ricochet and where this eventually goes. Main event on Monday Night Raw was Becky Lynch versus Nia Jax, last woman standing. I know we give Nia Jax all kinds of HE double hockey sticks on this motherfucker, and I mean, more times than not, deservedly so. I've said this on multiple times. I'll say it again here. I thought Nia Jax was being built up well leading up to the match versus Rhea Ripley, and now kind of spinning off of that, she's been used well to pair off against Becky Lynch. The win for Nia on Raw over Becky Lynch clean is the reason why we're running this back. There's no probably to it. Is the reason why we're running this back. Becky is trying to prove things to herself. Beating Nia Jax in a last woman standing match is proving something to herself. So obviously, the Becky Lynch that we all know and love, she's going to have that match. I thought it was a really good match. Not great, but really good. I thought both women did well. I thought it took Becky, a little ingenuity to get us from point A to point B to get to the point where she could win the match, and she did it. I thought that it just really made Becky feel like, she's overcoming these mountains, and Rhea Ripley being the Mount Everest of the women's division, that's the biggest mountain she's got. So it made her feel like not even a plucky underdog, because for real, I mean, Becky Lynch isn't an underdog. I mean, shit, she's one of the most decorated women that you have on the WWE roster right now. But I'll call it the way I see it. I'll keep it a buck. Rhea Ripley is, to me, the Mount Everest, the dominant of dominant women in the Raw roster. So for me, as I'm looking at it, Becky feels like a little bit of underdog. So to have her beat Nia Jax in this last woman standing match does kind of make a little sense. Rhea Ripley obviously comes out post-match, and they have their WrestleMania picture moment, staring each other down as Raw goes off the show. Excuse me. I would be lying if I said I wasn't intrigued by Rhea Ripley and Becky, because I honestly don't know who's going to win. It feels like Becky is going to win just the way they built her up, but Rhea Ripley has just had such an amazing run as a champion. I'm kind of on the fence of what I think is going to happen. In my heart of hearts, I think I'm rooting for Rhea Ripley. It just feels like, it's just her time. Becky, God bless her. What more can Becky Lynch do at this point? For me, it just feels like it's another opportunity to really cement Rhea Ripley as one of your dominant champions Charlotte comes back at some point, you can run Charlotte and Ripley back for the title and then, figure it out from there. Hell, if Becky wins, you can do Becky and Charlotte. That's not the worst thing in the world I've ever heard in my life. I mean, damn, they had a whole WrestleMania main event around that, throwing Ronda Rousey and you can run that back as well. So, I mean, you got options for there. I will just say this. 2 nights of WrestleMania seemed a little, I won't say weird, but just it felt like they kind of took the New Japan idea and kind of ran with it. Now it feels like it's the smartest thing they've ever done. I couldn't imagine having all these matches on one show. I mean, we could do it. It would be a 6-hour show, but it's not like it's not happened before. But I mean, some matches wouldn't get a chance to breathe. And I think those are the matches that if you give them a chance to breathe and be able to let them tell their stories, you'll be surprised how you could get involved in that match. AJ versus LA Knight, to me, is one of those matches that if you give them 15, 20 minutes to tell the story, I think it would be a really good match. Both guys, I think, can go, but there's a story to be told. LA Knight's on the rise while AJ's, kind of being the gatekeeper on that rise to ascension for LA Knight. So for me, that's one of those matches, like I said, if you give it time to breathe, I think you can get good results. And on that lovely note, let's get to that 2 count. Well, if Two Beer was here, it'd be like, well, let's go talk a little AEW. And yes, of course, obviously sticking to tradition on Band from Ringside, we are going to talk a little AEW on the 2 count. 2 episodes of Rampage. Okay. Let's. I got to put this aside step aside for 30 seconds. I know you guys, and when I say you guys, I mean by Tony Khan, AEW, have a contract and you get to put out X amount of shows, every week, or you're contracted to do so. But damn, man, we got to go through 2 Rampages. I mean, what? Collision is better than Rampage. Why not give me 2 collisions? I know it's just an hour, but still, 2 Rampages does feel like a little cruel and unusual from time to time. But in this scenario, it wasn't that bad. We'll just quickly run through Friday night's Rampage, and then we'll just wiggle our way into Wednesday night's Rampage that was shown just after Dynamite and preempted for the March Madness tournament. Hopefully your brackets are doing well. Kentucky taking the L tonight was a huge surprise. We're taking a couple losses on that one. To open Friday night's Rampage, you had Trent and Orange Cassidy defeat Evil Uno and John Silver to advance to the tag team tournament. They'll be facing, who are they facing? Oh, geez, Louise. No, they actually, I take that back. They had to wrestle Hobbs and Fletcher. They won that match on Rampage on Wednesday night. That win advance them into the tag team tournament. They'll be facing the Undisputed Kingdom. That would be Matt Taven and Mike Bennett in the first round of the tag team tournament. Righteous had a segment, whatever, don't give a shit. Zach Carter and Angelo Parker fight backstage, whatever, don't give a shit. Mariah May and Toni Storm defeat LMK and Kayla Sparks. I won't say don't give a shit, but obviously you knew who was going to go over here. The heels had really good chemistry to win this match. Queen Aminata with a nice little vignette. I have high hopes for her, but doesn't necessarily mean that Tony Khan has high hopes as well. Takeshita beats Commander. Takeshita is just that dude. I'm sorry. I gotta veer off on a Takeshita rant for 30 seconds. So obviously we know Okada has arrived in AEW, arguably one of the best wrestlers in the world. I honestly, and I'm not saying it to say this, I think Takeshita has all the physical traits that Okada has, that he could have easily been that guy placed in the Okada spot that, you know, he could have beat Eddie Kingston, could have been the international champion, you know, could have been the foreign ace, if you will. I'm not saying that Takeshita's better than Okada. Let's just, before everybody's like, oh my God, Jason, what are you saying? You know, I can see Zach getting ready to have a coronary over in the corner as I'm saying this. I'm just saying that Takeshita is physically gifted. He is special. And the fact that I feel like we're getting ready to feed him to Swerve, and that's not the worst thing in the world before everybody loses their shit again. Swerve is dope too. I'm just saying that I would rather see Takeshita feel special, presented as special. Don Callis is cool. That gives him heat. Okay, check. We get that. Okay, but you can't tell me that Takeshita can't do the things that Okada can do. You can't tell me that the same heat the Bucks get on Okada, that Don Callis can't get that same heat on Takeshita. We've seen it, okay? The fact that Takeshita feels like he's sliding away from it a little bit, it's not... I wouldn't say sliding away from us, but what am I trying to say? He's not being built up. He's not ascending the way that he should. And this was part of the things I was saying about, you know, getting guys like Okada and Ospreay in. One of the first things they had Ospreay do was go over to Takeshita. And don't get me wrong, losing to Will Ospreay isn't the end of the world by any stretch of the imagination. However, it just makes it harder for Takeshita to get, at least in my mind, to get back to where I think he should be. The Jericho loss was a little weird, neither here nor there. This loss to Ospreay, not a huge deal. You know, he beats Commander on Friday night's Rampage and then beats Rocky Romero on Wednesday night's Rampage. Okay, cool. We see Takeshita's a bad boy. You can throw these guys around, but I think we all know that he's going to lose to Swerve. So then now what? You can't have Takeshita out here floating in the wind and not have some plan for Takeshita. He's special, better than that, and he needs to be pushed as such. And the Takeshita rant. Main event on Friday night's Rampage, you had Matt Taven, Mike Bennett, and Roddy Strong defeat Top Flight and Action Andretti. Pretty good match. Rampage was not necessarily the best, not the worst, somewhere in the middle, which is fine for Rampage because Rampage can be hit or miss from time to time. Let's jump over to Collision on Saturday night. It opened up with Shibata versus Bryan Danielson. This was I was surprised to even see this match, number one, and number two, I thought this was a really good way to kind of, I guess, connect the dots from Danielson to Shibata. Shibata, unfortunately, it feels like he's getting ready to be used kind of like Takeshita was, or Takeshita is, better choice of words. Losing to Danielson isn't the worst thing in the world. I would assume next Wednesday night when Shibata and Will Ospreay have their match, I would assume that Shibata would lose that match as well. Not the end of the world there. It's a little different than Takeshita. Shibata doesn't feel like he's on the way up. He feels like he's hit his ceiling, and now we're just trying to feel like a place to put Shibata. I'm not the biggest fan of him losing to Danielson and or Ospreay, but I get it. Ospreay and Danielson are the bigger issue. It's the bigger story. It's going to be an amazing match when it comes here. Jesus Christ. April for me, just wrestling wise, just side note for 30 seconds. Obviously, you have WrestleMania weekend, the first weekend, the 5th and the 6th. The following weekend, I'll be driving up to Chicago for Windy City Riot. Naito versus Moxley as the main event. I'll see my boy Brett. Shout out to my boy Brett Jager, my nigga. That should be a good ass time. High Five Time, I believe, is coming as well. My Wrestling Lord and Savior, so that should be a good time as well. And then obviously AEW Dynasty after that. I'll say it. I'm blessed. I'm a very blessed individual when it comes to shit like that. Very lucky to see some of the things I've seen wrestling wise, but I digress. Next up, you had Julia Hart versus Trish Adora for the TBS title. Julia Hart retains. I'm not a big Julia Hart guy. I've said it. I'm not. It doesn't make sense to me for someone her size to be able to beat Chris Statlander on a fairly regular basis now. It feels like, was it 2-3 times now, once for the title. I believe it was obviously the main event on Wednesday night's Rampage was the second time, and I believe there was a third time that she pinned Chris Statlander to set up this street fight. So to me, it's almost like a dual, indictment on two different people. Chris Statlander's taking some L's to, Julia Hart, who in my eyes, I don't necessarily think is as good as Chris Statlander. And I'm not even a huge Chris Statlander fan, and I'm over to defending her. Julia Hart just doesn't feel like she's at least right now, a mid-card champion. Sky Blue, I felt like she could have been a little bit on the incline, if you will. Now it just feels like she's just Julia Hart's heater. That storyline just kind of, collapsed. She's not a House of Torture, but she's not a House of Black participant, a group member, but she's always, where Julia is, Sky Blue is there. So, I mean, I get it. It's a way to keep the title on Julia Hart. But for me, it doesn't make me look at Julia Hart any better, any greater, whatever word you want to use in the sentence, than I already do right now. And that's not really that much. Speaking of not that much, you had Harley Cameron and Zack Knight on a backstage vignette. Couldn't care less. So I'm not even going to go on a Saraya rant. I'll just simply say this. I know that I love Two Beer. I know he said that Saraya's a star. In my mind, in the AEW world, Saraya's not that big a star. Title reign or not, and that was a very short one at that. It was basically to win the title at home, and then she coughed it up to Toni Storm, who's ran with it and done amazing things with it. She was a star in WWE. I'll give you that. But when she's coming over to AEW, she's gotten mid-card pretty fucking quick. Okay? If you want to say she's had, a bunch of matches or a handful of matches, better choice of words, okay, you can add that on to my argument of why I think she's not a star. It's not like, she's this special attraction, okay? There's plenty of other women on this roster that I would consider stars before Saraya. Toni Storm, obviously, being one of them, okay? I keep wanting to call her Sasha Banks, but it's Mercedes Moné, obviously being one of them. Britt Baker, I think, is a bigger star than Saraya. I'm up MIA. We need to put out APBs for Britt Baker. Who is it? Ricky Starks, Big Bill. I know they're in this tag team tournament, but until I see them, as far as I'm concerned, they're not even around. Where the fuck is Ricky Starks and Big Bill? Where the fuck is Britt Baker? So you kind of get my point on this. For me, Saraya was a name there. She's not a name here at AEW. That's my Saraya rant. Daniel Garcia defeats Leah Moriarty in the battle of Blackpool Combat Club wannabe members. Kind of funny that these two guys are wrestling, and Wheeler Yuta, you can put him on that MIA list, put an APB out of his ass. I miss having my Blackpool Combat Club member, our little brother, to get bounced around. I know he's forged in combat. My poor Bill Vagey impression, but I like Will Yuta. I think he's, at least as somebody that's the whipping boy for Blackpool Combat Club, he has technical skills. So in that scenario, for me personally, I don't look at him as someone that is that bad in the ring. Jay White and Darby Allin, they had, well, I shouldn't say they had a segment. Jay White trolling Darby after busting up his foot, taking Sting's bat and turning it gold. Interesting with Jay White, I guess. I guess this is trying to get heat back on Jay White and ultimately lead to a, I guess, trios title versus title, AEW versus ROH, six-man trios, I guess, unification match with the Acclaimed and Daddy Ass. Jay White shouldn't be in this spot. I'm sorry. That's my Jay White rant for this week. He should not be in this spot. I don't care how bad he got cooked by Anthony Bowens on Wednesday night's Rampage, which was, I mean, Anthony Bowens hit it on the head and he said it perfectly. You know, the knocks against Jay White is he doesn't feel like he's a true heavyweight. Okay, yeah, I'll give you that. But the bigger knock is the one where Anthony Bowens was like, you know, you lost to MJF on one leg. I mean, that's the one, you know, that's where, you know, as much as the match was good, the build was good, and all this other good stuff, the finish makes Jay White not look good. And that doesn't bode well. This is, it goes back to what I said earlier. When Okada and Ospreay come over, other guys are going to start to take a back seat. Jay White shouldn't be taking a back seat, okay? Okada and Ospreay have met Jay White before in the past. I would assume their paths should cross again. I just don't understand why Jay White is in a feud over trios titles and not chasing after the abundance of singles titles that are in AEW. There you go. Jay White rant over. Pac beats Aaron Solo. We'll talk about Pac here in a little bit. Danielson with a solid promo backstage, basically saying that Ospreay can't walk his boots. We'll talk about that in a second. Claudio Castagnoli wins in a disqualification over Lance Archer. The Righteous comes out. Shibata makes the save with Danielson. I can't lie. I was Shibata for Black Bull Combat Club. I would be down for that. It's a long shot, but I would be down for it nonetheless. Angelo and Ruby Riott have a backstage segment, whatever. Kyle O'Reilly makes his return to the ring versus Brian Keith. I thought this was a really good match. Both guys looked good. Brian Keith is somebody that is on the independent scene. Is one of those guys that is much stronger on the independent scene than he is on the AEW scene. I believe he holds a couple titles out there. Don't hold me to that point, but neither here nor there. I thought Kyle O'Reilly looked good coming back to the ring. Undisputed Kingdom and Roddy Strong come out, you know, with the heroes welcome, put them on their shoulders, yada, yada, yada. Curious to see where that goes. I would think that you would see Roddy versus Kyle O'Reilly, but time shall tell. Thunder Rosa and Deonna Purrazzo backstage. You can feel the tension between the two. Deanna's kind of pissed off. Well, not even kind of pissed off. She's pissed off that she didn't win the AEW women's title after Tony tapped out. But Thunder Rosa is, you know, correct in the scenario where she never lost the title. She was injured and had to cough the title up. So intriguing moments leading up to the Wednesday night match. We'll talk about that here in a second. The Infantry with the upset of upsets for the week. They defeat the House of Black, being Buddy Murphy and Brody King. Who came out? Mark Briscoe came out to distract Brody King. That allowed the infantry to take over the match. I would think Mark Briscoe knocked down Buddy Matthews with the chair beforehand, then ran up the ramp. Mark Briscoe. Let's try this again. Briscoe hits Buddy Matthews with chair. Briscoe runs up the ramp. Then you had Brody King run after him. Infantry gets the win. Kind of weird in that scenario because I like the infantry. I get it. You know, it's a swerve. I don't like this swerve. It felt like a swerve to swerve versus the swerve to get the infantry over, because now the infantry's, you know, prize for this is FTR. Makes sense. They had a little verbal tete-a-tete, I guess, a week ago. and now the infantry are going to have to cash that check that they wrote on FTR. I mean, could we not get House of Black here? Did we not have this whole FTR House of Black feud? I mean, damn it. I know it's supposed to be over. You could have came back to this for the same scenario. FTR could go over either or team. It would make a difference. So you don't have to worry about, oh, there's House of Black. No, House of Black ain't going over. FTR is going over. Okay. So you have that. But to me, I think the better match, the match I would rather see is House of Black with Buddy Matthews and Brody King versus FTR versus the Infantry versus FTR. No knock against the Infantry. Take it for what it's worth. It's all with all due respect line coming up. Look, with all due respect, the Infantry is good, but they ain't supposed to be here. They'll get FTR in the first round. So the tag team tournament is now officially complete with those two matches. Infantry winning, Best Friends winning. So let's break it down real quick. On one side, you have the Bucks versus Private Party. If you don't remember, the first tag team tournament, Private Party beat the Bucks. So now you have the rematch. Both are heelish, so that should be interesting to see how that plays itself out. The winner of that Bucks Private Party match will get the winner of Undisputed Kingdom Best Friends. I would assume Undisputed Kingdom would win. We'll see how that plays out. On the other side of the bracket, the aforementioned MIA Ricky Starks and Big Bill, former AEW tag team champions, they'll get top flight, and then the winner of that will get the winner of the FTR Infantry match. And like I said, I would assume that would be FTR. Adam Copeland comes out in the final segment to talk trash on Christian Cage, basically saying that Jay died, Christian Cage is here now, and now he has morphed in a new weapon of destruction called Spike, in the vein of Janice and other weapons of the past. So Spike will make her introduction to Christian Cage on Wednesday night's I Quit match. So the perfect segue to jump over to Dynamite's Wednesday night that opens up with Mercedes Moné once again opening the show, interrupted by Julia Hart and the aforementioned Sky Blue. Jesus Christ. See, this is what I'm talking about right there. Sky Blue just running along like a little side chick. Everybody's talking that Sky Blue nonsense. Now she's just basically a side chick to Julia Hart. Anyway, neither here nor there. They come out to attack Mercedes Moné. Willow and Chris Statlander make saves with chairs in hand. The interesting twist, looked like Willow was getting ready to take a little shot on Mercedes, perhaps, question mark. I know I said last week that I felt that Mercedes would be the one to eventually turn heel on Willow Nightingale. I like this tease. It obviously put pause in my mind about the Willow Nightingale, Mercedes Moné relationship. Obviously, the segment backstage where not Willow introduced herself, but Chris Statlander introduced herself to Mercedes Moné, and then Mercedes and Willow had their interaction where Mercedes wasn't having it. Then, after she realized that Willow might have possibly taken a shot at her with the steel chair earlier in the night. So obvious tension between Willow and Mercedes. I thought Stokely Hathaway's tried interaction with Mercedes was absolute Comedy Central. If it was me, it's the only time I want to talk about me having a pencil, I think, this week. So I'm going to take the pencil for 30 seconds. If it was me, I would have Mercedes flip heel on Willow and pair her with Stokely. So now you have an amazing, just entertaining combination with Stokely being the mouthpiece, because people say that Mercedes can't talk. I don't necessarily agree with that. I think, she can do it when it comes down to it. But Stokely is one of the best talkers in the business. Right now, he's not doing all that much with Chris Statlander and Willow. Those two are baby faces. Let's leave them as baby faces. Sasha/Mercedes is a natural heel. Pair Stokely with a natural heel. Let them run off into the sunset. That's just me. Bucks and Okada, I kind of didn't talk about that yet. Bucks and Okada backstage. God damn. So Okada comes in. I believe it was a Ferrari. He came in with just looking clean, just playing up the top heel, just corporate heel. Oh, just swarmy, that motherfucker that you just don't like. He gets out. He's associated with the Bucks. Obviously, they get Alex Marvez backstage and have him run him down for him not being able to speak Japanese. He gets the introduction correctly this week, the Rainmaker Kazuchika Okada, but now the Bucks want him to start being able to speak Japanese. Once again, I never thought that this would be a pairing that would make sense, the Bucks and Okada, especially with me watching New Japan leading up to this point. They have nailed this shit. They really have. Heel Okada is something I've never seen to me in New Japan. When I started, you kind of saw Okada being heelish, but he wasn't this kind of heel. To me, this is an amazing transformation, that, at least for me, in my eyes, as the time Okada left AEW, by the time Okada left New Japan, to me, he was a true blue babyface. There was no two ways around it. Now seeing the flip side of it, I love heel Okada. This motherfucker is a clown, and I love everything about this shit. He hits the marks, the smiles after, he reeled in the babyface, Eddie Kingston. We'll talk about that in a second. Let's just talk about that shit right now. Okada versus Eddie Kingston for the Continental Crown Championship. So last week, obviously, I guess I came to this epiphany that Okada and I shouldn't say Okada, but Eddie Kingston was a Triple Crown champion, literally a triple Crown champion, the ROH, the New Japan, and obviously the Continental Crown Championships. So let's take a step back. First off, I thought the Continental Crown tournament was amazing, okay? It felt like a New Japan G1 tournament where you had some of the best against each other, and it felt like a G1. You had great matches, really good storylines, all that good stuff. It really hit the mark, and for a big, I guess one of their bigger tournaments, AEW, I thought they hit a home run with it. All that being said, now I thought that, and I'll just say I assumed that these three titles were being merged into one. The ROH title, the New Japan title, and then obviously the Continental Crown title. Now it just feels like they just snuck in another title for AEW. Obviously, Okada wins the match. I thought this was a really good match. I'm not sure why Okada wanted to try to trade with Eddie Kingston, but I thought this was a good way for Eddie to look strong. He was laying the wood on Okada's chest. That motherfucker was turning all different types of colors by the end of the match. Neither here nor there. Okada just, one step ahead, seemingly at certain points outside the ring with the DDT. When the referee was looking away, the eye gouge to set up the Rainmaker finish, and then the smiles at each and every time where, he was just a step ahead of Eddie. He kind of gave that little smile or whatever. And that's that's great for Okada to get that heel heat. It feels like he's just smarter and just one step ahead of everybody else. And with the Bucks, seemingly behind him, pushing him towards the top, it's going to be hard not to boo Kazuchika Okada going forward. Now, all that being said, he being Okada winning the one title just felt weird. If you're going to really put Okada over, why not have him walk away with 3 titles? Okay, that would be an amazing fucking look versus just having him win the one made up title that you just created. I'm not sitting up here and saying that the New Japan title is, more important, more significant than the Continental Crown title or the ROH title. Neither here nor there. None of that matters. To me, it's about the visual itself. The visual of Okada winning, to me, was going to happen regardless. Eddie Kingston had a really good run in the tournament. It was a nice little cherry on top winning it. His title reign was okay. It just felt a little bit of a downgrade considering the opponents he had faced in the tournament versus the opponents he was facing for the title. All that being said, Okada coming in, and once their past, being Eddie Kingston and Okada's, once their past started to converge, you knew that Okada was going to beat Eddie Kingston. It would just looked a whole lot better if Okada walked out of there with 3 titles. If you're a casual observer and you see this dude, having this match and walking out with 3 titles, that just looks a little more impressive. That's just me. Neither here nor there. Okada's going to be great in AEW. Eddie hopefully is going to bounce back and to get another chance at a major title at some point down the line. But to me, the optics was just a little off, especially when you had this whole ass tournament to create this title, to create this, I thought, title from merge 3 into 1, and now you have just 1 title, and now Eddie Kingston's going to start defending the ROH championship. I don't know. It just felt like a lot of goodwill, at least on my end, was taken away by making a move like that. Swerve backstage is making an open challenge. Still looking for Samoa Joe. We'll talk about that here in a little bit. We talked about the Chris Willow and Mercedes Moné backstage interaction. Hook versus Chris Jericho is next. I don't know if I have the words for this. This was just bad. And I'm not going to blame Hook. I'm gonna put a lot of this on Chris Jericho because he's the veteran here, and unfortunately, his performance here was just not that good. It was highlighted by, I guess, Jericho was trying to throw Hook into the corner and somehow made it to where Hook couldn't rotate it, I guess. Hook is a pretty good athlete. I think he could be able to do a flip if you push him underneath him the right way. It just looked like it was a miss on Jericho's part. One of the first of many. Hook smacks his face on the mat. Just not a good look. This was just bumpy from the start to the finish. Hook gets the win. At this point, I'm just kind of over it. I don't even want to see them even interact anymore. Okay, you got the Jericho rub. You guys shook hands. For me, that's where you guys need to walk away. For whatever reason, they're booked next week to meet in the ring and have some sort of discussion. I don't even care if Chris Jericho turns heel on Hook at this point. That would not make him any more interesting than he already has. We said it last week. It's not like Chris Jericho didn't have his mark in AEW, but right now it's either time for Chris Jericho to come away with a new reinvention, or he just needs to go away for a little bit and then come back and have, the absence makes the heart grow fonder type deal. People will love him more coming back. This dude was getting booed on Wednesday night, okay? And it wasn't them small boos either. It was audible, big boos. Either you was rooting for Hook, you didn't like Chris Jericho, you didn't like the match. Either way, this match and this angle just feels like it's not helping either or guy. As far as I'm concerned, both guys need to go to their neutral corners and, figure it out from that point on. Adam Cole, baby, comes on with a vignette running down Wardlow for the loss to Samoa Joe last week, and basically tells him he needs to ensure that the rest of the Undisputed Kingdom has their titles going forward. This feels like a lot of like MJF Wardlow, right? Is it just me? Am I tripping? Really felt like the same angle, just you changed the name of the top heel. I said it last week. It felt like after the Wardlow lost, we moved real quick from Wardlow challenging on to Swerve being the possible next challenger. I don't know, man. It felt weird seeing this vignette just because, like I said, it felt like instead of Adam Cole, I saw MJF saying this, and now we're just switching the name. So I'm not sure what the hell we're doing with Wardlow. it almost feels like everything Wardlow had said up to the point of the Samoa Joe loss feels like it's ringing true all over again. But I guess we'll see. Jericho has the segment with Hook, whatever, about Hook, better choice of words, still, whatever. Will Ospreay comes out with his retort to Daniel Bryan. He runs down his New Japan resume, which is obviously pretty impressive, and the guys that he's battled over in New Japan. Shibata is obviously the next opponent for Will Ospreay. Like I said earlier, I just hope that Shibata isn't being used the way that I think Takeshita is being used to put guys over that don't need to get put over. These guys are over, but we're trying to connect the dots. I get it. Like I said, Takeshita is too special to be doing no shit like that. Shibata feels like he's just, a different animal altogether, but the same concept applies. He's better than just enhancement talent, being used as enhancement talent. Better choice of words. Deonna Purrazzo and Thunder Rosa defeat Mariah May and Toni Storm. The story here is Thunder Rosa pinning the women's champion in Toni Storm after tagging herself in the match itself. So obviously the tension that we felt in the backstage on Collision spills over into the ring on Dynamite. Deonna Purrazzo clearly doesn't look happy and isn't happy that she lost out on the opportunity to get another possible title match. I'm not saying that Deonna Purrazzo is in trouble early. I don't think that she's a babyface, number one. So that could be part of the biggest problem to me watching her in Impact. She screams heel. I'm sorry. Just there's nothing about the way, and it's not a knock on Deonna Purrazzo. I like her. I think that in my heart of hearts, I hope things work out for her. I think she's an amazing talent, and AEW has, something to work with. Now, all that being said, right now, I think she's just being misused, booked poorly, whatever word you want to use in the sentence. To me, she's a heel. She acts like a heel. The fact now that we're kind of maybe leaning towards that fact because Thunder Rosa feels like she's getting ready to jump ahead of Deonna Purrazzo to get to Toni Storm. Maybe we see more of that, but right now, it just feels like early Deonna Purrazzo is not being used in the best way possible. Swerve Strickland defeats the Butcher in the open challenge. Samoa Joe comes out. They have some words, and just when I think we're going to add Samoa Joe and Swerve to AEW Dynasty, Don Callis, you motherfucker. Don Callis comes out and inserts Takeshita into the match before a possible Swerve Samoa Joe match. So next week on Dynamite, we'll get Swerve versus Takeshita, which on paper sounds amazing, which in the ring should be amazing. But once again, like I said, I love Swerve. I get it. Keeping Swerve strong before Samoa Joe, say that 5 times fast, is the right thing to do. I just don't want Takeshita being the guy that has to take the fall on the way to Swerve versus Samoa Joe. Then, obviously, the main event was the I Quit match for the TNT title, Adam Copeland versus Christian Cage. I thought this was good. I'm not going to say it. I don't think it was the best of their 3 matches. I think the first one, their first match to me was the best. This was their second best in the match where Christian lost the title, but then ended up getting it back. To me was the worst. I can't get over the Luchasaurus ending. I can't. I'm just not going to. You can't make me. I'm not going to do it. Anyway, neither here nor there. I thought this was a little sports entertainment where you had, I guess that was Christian wearing the Boston Bruins jersey, Copeland wearing the Toronto Maple Leafs jersey, them fighting outside of the ring into the stands, a la hockey brawl. That was WWE. I'm not mad about that. Going into the women's restroom, that was WWE. I ain't mad about that. I get it. That's the things that I expected to see. So ultimately, I wasn't too surprised with that. the fuckery from the patriarchy, not a surprise. It's just, to me, a matter of time when they were all going to come out. Daniel Garcia and Matt Menard makes sense coming out, making the save. They've been involved in this pretty much from the get-go. So all these ingredients added together, it was a pretty good main event. Obviously, Christian Cage drops the title to Adam Copeland after Spike is introduced, and the low blow to Christian Cage. I'm sorry, to me that was it. You ain't got to threaten me a second time. That should have been the end of the match. Christian should have been in the corner crying like a little girl, screaming, "I quit." But once again, this is why I don't write these things. The threat of a second blow to the head makes Christian Cage tap out, say "I quit," whatever words you want to use in the sentence. Adam Copeland finally regains the TNT title. So I know that Bill said this on multiple occasions. I'm pretty sure that Zach co-signed on this and was saying basically that Adam Copeland doesn't feel like a mid-card champion. I'm not saying I disagree with that. I can totally see what you're saying in that. I'll just say this. Right now, the top of the card is pretty fucking loaded. I'm not sure if I want to see Adam Copeland up in the top of that card right now. I don't think he's beating Swerve. I don't want him to beat Takeshita. He's not beating Will Ospreay. I don't want him to him and Daniel Bryan have done their dance. So, I don't necessarily want to see that. I get it. He's a name and he should be at the top of the card, but ultimately either we've seen those matches or I'm not in a rush to see it anytime soon. That's just me. I get it. He's a nice name to add to the war chest for Tony Khan. You can use him anytime you wish, and people are going to watch because, WWE fans obviously know who he is. He's getting AEW fans here, so he's a name that everybody kind of knows. I'm just not sure if he wants to be at the top of the card. I don't necessarily think he needs to be at the top of the card because this fucking roster, like I keep saying, is fucking loaded. Every time you look up, somebody else new is coming over. So, I mean, I get it. It's a name, but for me, maybe it's not the name that we need to be worried about ultimately in the long run. All right, let's go over Wednesday night's Rampage really quick. 3 hours. Jesus Christ. It felt like a Monday Night Raw. I shouldn't say that. It wasn't that bad. Bullet Club Gold has their segment again on Rampage. Acclaim comes back with the retort. Max Caster was fine, but like I said, Anthony Bowen's just cooking. Jay White was the highlight of the segment. Like I said, everything I thought he said was pretty much on the head. Not looking forward to the match. I would assume that would be a match here in the Louvre for AEW Dynasty, but I will agree the fact that it's probably just time to have one set of trios / 6-man titles versus the two. It's no reason at this point. Plus the AEW titles after the Acclaimed and Daddy Ass, redid them. Hard fucking pass. That is not a cute look. Hobbs and Fletcher lose to Trent and Orange Cassidy. Like I said, that puts them in the tag team tournament. Shibata beats up a guy named Matthews. I didn't write down his first name. Sorry, Mr. Matthews. We see Adam Copeland in the back celebrating. Takeshita beats Rocky Romero. Then in the main event, you had Julia Hart and Sky Blue defeat Chris Statlander and Willow Nightingale. Chris Statlander taking the pin again. It's weird how Chris Statlander was the one to beat Jade, and now all of a sudden she's taking pins to Julia Hart, multiple, one for losing the title and probably two more. Like I said, I'm pretty sure that happened after Chris Statlander dropped the title. That just, like I said, it's just weird to me. All the House of Black bullshit aside, if we were seeing more of that, okay, fair enough. But now it's like, some okey doke shit. So-and-so hits Chris Statlander and, Julia Hart takes advantage of it. For me, that doesn't make Julia Hart, look good as a heel. It makes her an opportunist. I'll give you that, right place, right time. But to me, she has a way to go still in the ring to make me get on her bandwagon. That's just me. On that lovely note, let's get to that 3 count. Okay, so the 3 count, we're going to do a little, I guess we'll do New Japan on this one, and then we'll make NXT the odds and ends to close the show. So New Japan has their New Japan Cup going on right now. Obviously, we kind of touched on a little bit, not talked about it too much. Probably delve into it more on PSP 21 coming up here in a little bit, but neither here nor there. Let's just talk about the matches leading up to the final, because the final was, I believe, that was Wednesday. Yes, it was Wednesday morning, and then the kind of ramifications going forward. One thing to know, David Finlay was injured, I believe, in a match leading up to the, when was this? I believe it was the match after he defeated Tamaloa. He got hurt in one of the prelim smaller matches after that, and then he had to be taken out of the tournament. David Finlay, I'm not saying it was one that was going to win the tournament, but it was obviously a name in the tournament, and it felt like he at least was a prohibitive favorite to make a run. So David Finlay being out for a little bit, if New Japan didn't have problems with guys leaving for AEW, injuries are the last thing they need. And I know David Finlay's, not in a name like Okada or Ospreay, but the way he has been booked in New Japan, he beat Will Ospreay, pinned Will Ospreay on the way out the door. So at least New Japan looks at him favorably for the most part, minus the Nick Nemeth title change a few weeks back, neither here nor there. So that kind of hurts the overall look for the tournament, but obviously the show had to go on. So we're going to jump back into the tournament second round matches. You had Yota Tsuji defeat ELP in an amazing fucking match. This is one of the better matches of the tournament. He moves on. Then on the main event of that show, I believe that was the 8th, if I'm reading this right. I can't read my own handwriting. Yeah, the 15th. I apologize. The 15th. Ren Narita defeats Zack Sabre Jr. in the main event. I thought Zack Sabre Jr. was one of the guys that could have won, same as David Finlay. I'm kind of glad that Zack Sabre Jr. didn't win, but it was a surprise to me to see Ren Narita win. It wasn't like he won clean. Let's not get it twisted. There was some House of Torture fuckery involved, but I will give Ren Narita credit where credit is due. I thought that up until the point of fuckery, Ren Narita was giving Zack Sabre Jr. some sort of fit. So something to be said about that. I like Ren Narita. Just if we could ease up on the House of Torture shit for his matches, that would be great. The next night, I believe that was the 16th, you had only one match because obviously David Finlay having to drop out allows, I believe it was Goto to move on. Neither here nor there. Sonata defeats Jack Perry in a rematch of last year's Forbidden Door. I thought this was pretty good. I'm not a big fan of Jack Perry defeating, guys that I think should have gotten a push, mainly Shoma Umino. Jack Perry beating Yano didn't bother me not one bit. It's always hashtag fuck Yano all day, every day. So in that scenario, that didn't bother me. But it still is going to be in my crawl because I'm not sure why Jack Perry's over in New Japan. I know it can be the land of reinvention and whatever the case may be, but to have him beat Shota Umino still is hard for me to wrap my head around. I get the whole House of Torture involvement. Okay, fair enough, but not the move I would have made, but neither here nor there. Sonata defeats Jack Perry again. Sonata moves on to the semifinals. The next night, the 17th, you had Yota Tsuji defeat Ren Narita. I thought this was a really good match. It feels like it was a nice little glimpse into the future possibly with Ren Narita and Yota Tsuji here. Yota Tsuji obviously is one of the guys that I really am high on. Ren Narita as well. It was hard to not root for either or guy because I think both have bright futures ahead of them. But Yota Tsuji overcomes House of Torture and Ren Narita. The alternate quarterfinal had Evil defeating Shingo Takagi, which was obviously my choice to win it all. All kinds of shit going on here. Once again, House of Torture and LIJ both trying to allow Shingo / Evil to win the match. Evil wins. He wins that match and moves on to the semifinals. So semifinals are set. Yota Tsuji versus Evil. There was just all kinds of shit going on before the Evil Tsuji match. It was ruled a no contest. Then they restarted the match. This is what I'm talking about. House of Torture bullshit. I'm sorry. I won't even say unprofessional bullshit. How I'm being left here by myself talking wrestling.
Absolute fucking bullshit. Unprofessional bullshit.
That's what that shit is. But neither here nor there. I'm enjoying myself. Yota Tsuji comes out on the reset and defeats Evil. He moves on to the final. Goto was the opponent for David Finlay. He got the bye. He moved into the semifinals and defeats Sonata. So now the final is set. Goto, who has won New Japan Cup, I believe 3 times now, versus the Wonderkin from LIJ and Yota Tsuji. I thought this was a pretty good match. I would be lying if I didn't think that Goto didn't at least have a coin flip chance to win it. Yota Tsuji, obviously, for me, would have been the right call. LIJ ties aside, Yota Tsuji is a part of this future that New Japan is going to tie its hopes around. And throughout this tournament, Yota Tsuji has stood out. He did a curb stomp, I believe it was on ELP, where he jumped from the mat onto the second, onto the top rope, and then curb stomped ELP to win that match. Right then, like I keep saying, I always think, I see everything from Yota Tsuji. There's nothing that he hasn't done yet that would surprise me. He did that shit, and that shit surprised the fuck out of my ass. And that just made me an even bigger fan. The fact that he ran through this tournament and got to this point gave me a little hope that he could actually win this match. And guess what? He fucking won the match. Yota Tsuji wins the New Japan Cup, defeating Goto in 23 minutes and 1 second. So now you have an all LIJ main event for Sakura Genesis. Yota Tsuji versus Naito. I believe that is the first weekend of April. I believe that's a Thursday afternoon. So for those who give a shit, it will be before WrestleMania. So add that to my list of crazy shit that's going on for the month of April. Yota Tsuji versus Naito is, like I said, interesting in the sense that these are both Los Ingobernables de Japón members, but as I've said before in the past, I think Yota Tsuji, if he stays with LIJ, he will ultimately become the leader of LIJ. Losing a match to Naito, I would assume that he would lose this match. He better lose this match because shit, we got tickets to Windy City Riot. That would be kind of a womp womp sort of a surprise if Yota Tsuji won the match and the main event was Naito versus Moxley. It would be fine. It's Moxley and Naito. It would still be a main event, but damn it, we need the title to go with it. So for selfish purposes, I would like to see Naito win that match versus Yota Tsuji. But I think going forward, Yota Tsuji is going to be the future. I think he will be a future IWGP champion at some point. I think he will be the leader of LIJ at some point. All these things, I'm sure, will play themselves out here momentarily. It's just now we just have to see how things unfold and go from that route. From that point, there's been a couple other matches, though. No title matches that I can think of off of the top of my head for New Japan coming up for the Sakura Genesis, but I did at least want to touch on the fact that Yoda did win the New Japan Cup 1 and 2. I know I called it the mid Japan Cup last week. It was mid last week, and I would be lying if I said otherwise. I thought the last few matches from the second round to the final started to pick up. It felt a little more like a traditional New Japan tournament. So in that scenario, I thought that it was a nice bounce back. It's not like it's going to be the same because you don't have the big names like you did in the past. Okada's gone, obviously. Well, Ospreay's gone, obviously. Jay White's gone, obviously. So those are big vacuums that need to have space, to have someone occupy that space. Power vacuums, if you will. There's guys that are on the roster that might be able to do it. I'm not saying that Yosuji's going to win the title versus Naito. Like I said, I'm pretty sure he's not, but I expect him to be a champion at some point down the line. Same for Ren Narita, same for Uemura, same for Shota Umino, the four musketeers, as far as I'm concerned, of New Japan. I expect them all to be champions at some point. I thought ELP, even in the short time that he had in this tournament, I thought his matches stood out. Gabe Kidd, I thought him and Shingo had one of the better matches of the tournament. Shingo Takagi, obviously somebody I think it should be in this talk when it comes to a title of, the highest title in New Japan, the IWGP Championship. So, I mean, there's guys that are available to be able to occupy this power vacuum. Now we're just going to have to wait and see how this unfolds. Obviously, we'll probably talk more about Segura Genesis as it gets closer, but I would be remiss if I didn't talk about New Japan, because obviously there's nobody to stop me from talking about it. So on that lovely note, that was our 3 count for the week. All right, so let's talk some NXT odds and ends, and then we'll close up shop for the week. NXT obviously leading to Stand and Deliver. Naomi, Jesus Christ. Roxanne Perez opens the show, defeating Tatum Paxley. She demands a title shot the title first. After the match, you had Lyra Valkyria come out, catch that work from Roxanne Perez to eventually lead to the title match being made for Stand and Deliver. Roxanne Perez versus Lyra Valkyria. I'm loving this Roxanne Perez heel turn so far. To me, it has to end in one of two ways. Either Roxanne wins the title, or if she loses, she's going to the main roster. I'm not sure what more can be done with Roxanne on NXT. I'm not saying that she couldn't win the title, but it feels like it's either title or bust, neither here nor there. Metaphor and Alpha Academy with a funny backstage segment. They're going to, God damn, I love these two jokers when you had Lash Legend and Otis backstage, and Otis was saying how he was jealous of Trick kissing Lash Legend last week. That was it right there. To me, the best way to have them interact. Josh Briggs, Obafemi, and Dijak feel like they're on the way to a triple threat title match for the North American title. That feels like that's going to be a banger of a match if that unfolds. They had a little interaction last week, broken up by referees, but if any indication of that, if that's a match that we're going to see, I'm totally down for it. Wolf Dogs and Alpha Academy bump backstage. They're going to have a match next week. If Alpha Academy wins, they'll be added to the triple threat match for Stand and Deliver. If not, they'll become a triple threat match. I don't know. I totally forgot how this shit played itself out, to be perfectly honest. I know that, what was it? Good Brothers won their match. And then Axiom and Nathan Frazier won their match. So it will be LWO, Nathan Frazier, Axiom versus, try this again. LWO versus Frazier and Axiom versus the Good Brothers. If Alpha Academy wins, I believe that's the match they'll be added to, and the winner of that match faces the Wolf Dogs at Stand and Deliver for the NXT Tag Team titles. Everybody follow all that? Fair enough. You had Sol Ruka return to beat Brindley Reese. Blair Davenport attacks her after the match. Rich Holland apparently is slowly but surely flipping heel. Don't give a shit about that. Sean Spears I like, but that doesn't help me like him any more or less. I'm just kind of more about this whole thing. What I'm not about is Ariana Grace and Gigi Dolan. I think that's going to be a train wreck of a comedy segment going forward, where Gigi Dolan now has to be under the wing of Ariana Grace. I just want to see the transformation, from this Gigi to the Ariana Gigi. Obviously, we'll get the former Gigi back at some point, but I think Ariana Grace is a very entertaining heel. Not great in the ring, but I think she's a person that is easily dislikable in the world of NXT. Tony D'Angelo and Ilya had their build to their NXT title match. I hate to say it. Maybe Bill might be right. I don't know if Tony D'Angelo is at least the gimmick or the way this has been booked or built. I don't know. It feels like Tony D'Angelo is heelish, but he's not being a heel, but he should be being a heel. I don't know. I think, like I said weeks ago, in ring, I like Tony D'Angelo. When he was throwing around Braun Breaker, that to me was at least some sort of signal, that he has in-ring ability. The gimmick has always been in question. It was probably one of the reasons why I stopped watching NXT when it rebranded. But I came back, just when Tony D'Angelo was in jail, okay? So a lot of things, and obviously he's probably heard at this point, neither here nor there. Storyline-wise, he's in jail. And I missed, some of the matches that would have probably maybe have turned me off a little more on him. Neither here nor there. The fact that I'm kind of on board with him kind of speaks volumes. I've at least seen something in the ring where at least giving me pause for the cause. The gimmick or the booking, I don't know. Something's off about this. I think the match itself should be good. The booking, the build for this, not so much. Not a huge fan of this. Thea Hale and Riley Osborne hug it out backstage. I'm sure there will be some fireworks there at some point down the line. Drew Gulak versus Riley Osborne for the Heritage Cup. Drew Gulak retains. Then you had Brooks Jensen and Fallon Henley beefing backstage. Keelani Jordan ready to fight the local mean girls, and Izzy Dame and Kiana James. I'm sorry, that shit is so funny to me when she points her name that's not on the screen and the announcer says it. I don't know what it is. It's goddamn comedy to me. Neither here nor there. Keelani Jordan's looking for them. We'll talk about that in a second. Hank and Tank lose to the Good Brothers. Like I said, that takes the Good Brothers into the final match. I wouldn't say the final match, but the last qualifying match before Stand and Deliver. Why is the Raw roster going straight to their fucking WrestleMania while everybody else has to jump hoops to get to that point? I know I said this, but it really was reinforced at this point on NXT. Keelani and Fallon Henley attack Izzy Brooks and Kiana James backstage. I'm sure that'll be a tag team match either next week. Probably shouldn't make it to Stand and Deliver. That's just me, but I'm sure we're going to see that tag team match, but neither here nor there. The main event, you had Noam Dar versus Trick Williams. Trick Williams goes over, but then gets attacked by Carmelo Hayes dressed as a part of security to end the show. Trick and Mello have been made official for Stand and Deliver. That's going to be one of the highlight matches. You will have that. I believe now The women's match is official. Yeah, I already said that. So, Lyra Valkyria versus Roxanne, the top. Ilya Dragunov versus Tony D'Angelo. You'll have the tag team titles on the line with Wolf Dogs versus whoever wins the Fatal 4-Way. And then I would assume the North American title, triple threat style, Obafemi versus Dijak versus Josh Briggs. So Stand and Deliver quietly could be a nice little appetizer for that WrestleMania weekend.
This is Banned from Ringside.
All right. Feels like it's about that time to start wrapping it up. I assume the boys will be back next week. I will be back next week. I'm not sure who will be back with me. I know I'll be gone the week of WrestleMania predictions. That is the Cardinals home opener. It's the usual week I skip to go down and watch the Cardinals start their season here down at Busch Stadium. So I'll be gone that week, but obviously we'll be piecing and patching things as we go along. Like I said earlier in the show, don't forget Wrestling at the Grandel coming up this Sunday night. Tickets still available at MetroTix. You can go there, get your tickets. Doors open at 3, matches start at 4. So like I said, if you see me there, I should be BFR geared out, looking as only as I look, as the man Ric Flair would say. So yeah, if you see me, come up, holla at your boy. Let's take a picture, let's talk some wrestling, and have a good time for that show. Hey everybody, I know there's plenty of podcasts to listen to. Thank you for listening to ours. So for Tinder Mahal, for Wrestling at the Grandel, for Patriot Pat, for Murray the Murray Man, for Murray, for Lucha Chris, for Dog, I will see you on Sunday, for the aforementioned Superior Zach Pullman, for Bill Vagey, for Vice, I'm your humble host, Jason Cornelius Bell. Remember, Black Lives Matter. Remember, support your local drug dealers, support your local restaurants, call your mom and dad, and never ever forget to boo the motherfucking heels. Boo, bitch.